I'm Hector, a 5-role challenger player, and for the past 6 years or so I've been a skill capped, I've been studying everything there is to do with low ELO. In that time, I've seen the player base become so much more skilled as educational content is on the rise, but at the same time, I see the same mistakes being made over and over, which are often costing players easy wins. So, I'm going to be covering 7 of the top mistakes I see all the time. Every mistake is applicable to a lot of roles, but some are a little bit more relevant to others. I'll let you know if that's the case. Anyway, our first mistake is one I see even challenger players make, and it's a little bit more relevant in top lane, but ADCs and mids should pay attention as well, which is ruining your own setup. I think there's nothing as sad as learning a ton of good fundamentals, playing the game well, and then a single, unnoticeable mistake completely ruins everything you've been working for. Let me show you what I mean in this lane, where the enemy Gnar made a huge misstep letting Aatrox get a juicy trade on him. From there, Aatrox does all of the right things. Clearly, he watches educational content. He uses the lane pressure he now has to very slowly build up a big wave, then he eventually crashes it at Gnar's tower after slow pushing as long as possible. From there, he immediately bases, buys tabbies, and teleports back to lane. Not only this, but the Gnar also made a colossal mistake. He auto-attacks this minion instead of immediately basing as well. Now the wave is 100% pushing away from him, so Gnar is down in health and items to Aatrox, who can now just freeze the wave. The lane couldn't be in a more perfect state for Aatrox right now, and he's going to throw it away in 5 seconds. Gnar continues to greed by staying in lane, so Aatrox looks to trade on him. At first, this does look good, but this is one of the worst things he could have done. All of his effort is pointless now. This is because during the trade, he broke his own freeze, so now there is nothing stopping Gnar from walking backwards, basing, and teleporting back to lane. Let me visualize what should have happened first so you understand why this is so bad. If Aatrox had just let the freeze build up and push further out, Gnar would be under a lot more threat and much more killable, which would force him to base. But to do that, he'd have to walk 5 or 6 seconds back to the safety of tower to recall, then 8 more seconds to base. From there, it takes like 2 to 5 seconds to heal and buy items depending on how fast he is. Then it takes 10 seconds to teleport back to lane, and then maybe 4 or 5 more seconds to walk back into experience range. That's about 30 seconds or so where Gnar is missing experience the entire time because the wave is frozen. Now let's compare that to what actually happened. Because of the trade that broke the freeze, the wave is pushing towards Gnar, so he could just walk back, base, and then teleport back, and he missed a total of 2 caster minions in that entire time. Every mistake that Gnar made leading up to this, and every good decision that Aatrox also made, were all completely irrelevant. When you're setting up a freeze, you always have to remind yourself that if you trade with your opponent, you will either draw minion aggro, or you will damage the wave with your AoE spells, which might break your freeze. This is why I mentioned even challengers can make this mistake, because it's not about having the knowledge of it, it's about having the insane discipline to not take a free trade. You have to look at your opponent completely trolling in your face and remind yourself, okay, the payoff to not trading here is even better, so I have to ignore him being a complete idiot. That is harder than it sounds, but building that self-restraint on freezes will let you punish players way more consistently. Speaking of self-restraint, my favorite thing to criticize low elo players for is always going to be how they play around objectives. I want you to watch a series of events unfold. At the start of everything, we have Vel'Koz and Maokai moving into the river after crashing this wave. Then a really awkward fight begins, so Ezreal makes the decision to ditch his wave to go help. Vel'Koz and Maokai manage to get away, so Ezreal goes back to farm. But Nocturne, like all junglers before him, and for those who come after, decides to ignore everything and dies for the scuttle. Love that. And as Nocturne was getting caught out, Ezreal ditched the wave again to go try to help him. These are all extra mistakes we talk about all the time as skill cap, but the one the red team is about to make is even worse. They end up leashing the dragon with their numbers advantage, but pay attention. In mid, Vlad has priority over Jhin. Spoiler, this isn't going to matter because he's blind as a bat, but he does have priority. Secondly, Brand and Ezreal are clearly contesting. They think they can stop this objective. What would you do as the red team here? It's super simple. All they have to do is walk away. The threat of something is often just as good as the prize itself. Think about how many times you've set up a Baron and the enemy team face checks into you and you just win the game off it. Baron's buff didn't win you the game. The threat of taking it is what actually did. In this game, Ezreal has sacked not just one wave, not just 2, but he's currently losing a 3rd one by contesting a dragon. And that's not counting the free Nocturne kill earlier. The red team has already gotten such a massive advantage advantage around this dragon, they could just walk away and bot lane is completely won. The game is so easy to win right now. So what are they gonna do? Well, there's really only one option. You have to commit to the objective, of course. By the way, as an extra tip, this is especially bad because the Chemtech dragon specifically gets higher attack speed as it gets lower on health, so it's even worse to take risky fights over it. Unfortunately, Nocturne respawns, gets back in time and steals it, and now they're running for their lives, with Kha'Zix eventually going down. This is a huge mistake I see every time in low elo. Players care so much about the objective that they don't consider the value that just threatening it could have given them. Ezreal had already completely thrown his lane by missing so many waves. They don't need Dragon right at this moment to win this game. They could have just played through bot and naturally won that way. I am gonna give props to this Vel'Koz though. Throughout this entire play, he always had the wave in the back of his mind. He didn't have flash, so he positioned in a way to where he's providing help but never put himself at risk over this call where he didn't know how things would turn out. That's because he knows the consistent thing to do is to always play for this wave, which is a guaranteed advantage. I can just tell Vel'Koz is a player who will climb elo because he's got a good mindset for solo queue. That's exactly what we teach at Skillcapped. You need to know how to play for yourself, especially in low elo where you're going to find yourself in a bunch of random situations because your teammates have no idea what they're doing. Our goal at Skillcapped is to take the information from challenger players who know what good decisions are, but then how to apply that advice through the low elo perspective. You can't expect players in your elo to know what to do with your priority or how to strong side you when you're fed. It's never going to happen, so you need to know how to adapt to awkward circumstances. That's what our courses at Skillcapped focus on better than anywhere else on the internet. We know that low elo is completely different, so we focus on practical advice that actually works, not what should be happening on the map. And to back that up, we always offer a money back guarantee. If you don't climb at least 5 divisions while actively using our courses, you just get your money back. So if you're interested in learning how to climb fast through low elo, use the discount link below. It helps me out personally quite a bit. Thanks, and back to the guide. As for my third tip, I want to address that in League, there are going to be games where you inevitably fall behind. I feel like players get into a really bad mindset where they don't want to get flamed or be the reason that they lost the game. Heaven forbid, you having a bad game is the reason this thread gets posted on Reddit for the 50th time. And I've noticed that the most consistent thing players do when they fall behind is they either play way too safe or they group too much. Like this Tryndamere who's been having a rough game. Like I said, it happens sometimes. I want you to pay attention though. As Dragon is spawning, here's the team's scores. He's pretty useless compared to the rest of his winning team. Pay attention to what happens in this fight. He gets queued by Mumu, takes some AoE damage from him and from Smolder over the wall, and he has to immediately spin out of there. But he still has his ultimate, so he tries to go back in, and he just gets ulted by Mumu, so he has to burn his own ult flash and spin out again. Great, he clearly provided a ton of value here. I want you to remember, it is okay to have games where you feel useless, but don't be worthless and make it easy on your opponents. Think about it like this. If you're a 10 kill LeBlanc versus a 0-10 Ryze, what would be more annoying? If he's bot lane pushing tower while Baron is being contested, you have to wonder, do I go kill him again? But he's not really worth any gold, so I should just stay at Baron, my team needs me here. But if we don't get it fast, he's gonna take towers, I don't know. The Fed LeBlanc still has all of the advantages, but it does pose a question to her, which might cause her to throw her lead and mess up. On the other hand, if the feeding Ryze is at Baron with the rest of his team, all that's going to go through LeBlanc's head is, sweet, I can one-shot this inting moron again. Tryndamere made this mistake multiple times this game. Every time he would try to help his team, he just ulted and did literally nothing in the fight. I don't care what your team might think about you or if they report you for thinking you're trolling. Imagine if Tryndamere just didn't care and he sent it down mid before Dragon. If you're going to be worthless somewhere else. No matter how far behind you are, you can always push a wave and a tower. That is honestly how most challengers play from behind. On the opposite end of the spectrum though, there's an extremely common mistake players make when they have a lead instead. This is going to sound a bit stupid, but I don't know how else to say it. Low elo players try way too hard to win the game when they have a lead. People are always saying you should push your advantage, extend your gold lead, blah blah blah. Like this blue team, they have a colossal early game advantage. You press tab and the game looks quite good. Well, except for mid, but that's okay. And being so ahead is exactly what compels them to lose their minds. The enemy team has Vladimir and Braum, two very hard to dive champions, and they just send it to dive mid anyway. The red team easily counters the play, and although it's a long fight, they do eventually end up cleaning up everyone there. I want this to be very clear. Your game plan should not change even if you have a gold lead. just keep doing what you were doing that got you the lead in the first place. If you keep pressuring lanes in the jungle, you will naturally find kills like you were doing before, and those kills are naturally going to lead into objectives. Basically, I don't want you to feel like you have to force your advantage to get even further ahead, especially around mid. I don't know what it is about mid tower, but this team does the exact same thing again. They brute force for it and just die. I think it's all of the educational content around how important mid tower is that causes players to lose their minds. Like once you take it, you can extend your vision line, and then you open up the map and you can place this mid lane ward which scouts everything, blah blah. Trust me, stop feeling like you need to actively do something to close games out and win it. Keep pressuring lanes, keep farming, and scoring kills when you can. You will naturally get objectives and win if you just keep doing that. Along the lines of things you don't need to do, you also shouldn't feel the need to clear every ward you see. In League, just because your opponents can see you doesn't mean they can do anything about it. I see low elo players waste so much tempo to clear wards that do not matter. Like this Shaco, there's 2 wards on top of each other that are about to expire. He doesn't need to clear them. He's already been spotted and there's nothing here anyway. And then in the river, these wards were also expiring. It was okay to clear these, but I do think the better play is to just get Skullcrab faster before the enemy team could contest him. League of Legends is a game that rewards you a ton for doing things on the map faster so you can get more stuff done overall. I feel like players underestimate how much time they waste clearing worthless wards. Let me show you an example from an educational commentary I did. And I just base here. Don't tunnel vision on this plate. Also, do not tunnel vision on this control ward. A lot of supports will cancel their recall here. There's a lot of action on the map that I can get to. I can just clear this later. Right now, I have Deadman's Plate. I have a good time to roam. Let's go see what we can do. And you can see why I think this matters so much. I get to mid lane just in time to counter this play, resulting in an easy kill, and I would have missed that opportunity if I had spent time clearing that worthless ward. You always want to weigh how much time you're wasting to clear a ward versus how important the ward is in the first place. For example, let's say Karthus is about to full clear his jungle, but he sees a ping control ward in this brush. He would have to go into the brush, then slowly auto attack it 4 times. That takes forever and is not worth it, especially because you're clearing away from this part of the map anyway, so who cares if there's still vision here. On the other hand, if you're a champion with high attack speed or an auto attack reset and you're right next to a ward, then obviously it's okay to clear it. Our next mistake is a little bit more relevant for mid laners, but it's definitely true for most roles. I've found that low elo players are way too stingy with their ultimates, especially if they don't think it's going to result in a kill. Like this Zed, for example, he's built up a massive lead versus the enemy Sylas. Unfortunately, he makes a mistake the next time they interact in lane. He throws his combo and whiffs, meanwhile Sylas lands a great chain. Pausing right now, Sylas is all out of spells, but Zed's W is about to run out. Typically, Zed players don't want to use their ultimate without their W up, or it likely won't result in a kill. So instead of being disciplined and just pressing it for a good trade, Zed takes a bad trade now and looks to kill him later. Except he's way too low on health now, so the next time they interact, Sylas just one-shots him before Zed can even get fancy, and his lead is completely gone. If we go back, all Zed had to do was press R. Yes, he may not kill the Sylas, but he would get him to like 10 or 20% HP, and then Sylas can't do anything anyway. Here's some example of how disciplined good players are with their ultimates. Chovy lands a random root on Talia and just slams his ult without hesitation just to deal 50% of her health. Faker notices Galio recalling, so he presses ult just to cancel the recall. You really shouldn't underestimate the value of forcing your opponents to base or just simply having priority with a health lead over them. If you have priority, your team has a much easier time playing the game because you can react to everything first. You're not going to need your ultimate if your lane opponent can't follow you anyway. Moving on, let's talk about our final mistake, which I think is very fitting for this type of video. Don't tunnel vision on what you hear in educational guides. I both make a ton of educational content, but I also watch a lot of it, and I play a lot of low elo at the same time. And I have seen firsthand what it's done to the player base. I love to call some of the players I see guide watchers because it's just so blatantly obvious that they're playing based on how a guide told them to. Take a look at this Alistar. He just got a double kill and he's doing pretty well for himself. Then he walks back in the lane, walks into the brush and starts basing. I will say he should definitely be fixing Kai'Sa's wave here, but that's okay. Let's see what he does. He was basing at the 8-minute marker because that's when grubs spawn. So as a support, you should get a recall in at this timer to rotate over there and contest the— Buddy, your Kayn is in the bottom jungle invade rotating. Why are you walking over here? The enemy Zyra also rotated as well. At least her pathing here is a little less bad considering her Graves was in the area, but her Renekton was basing, so Graves didn't really want to start the grubs, and she is just here for no reason. I'm only saying this because of how prevalent this issue is. The information you receive from guides is suggestions and ideas, not something you should be trying to force every game, especially with timing advice windows like we just saw. Like if some guide is telling you to build up a wave crash at 4 minutes, to set up a base and TP back and build another slow push because tower fortifications go down at 5 minutes, so now you can time your demolish proc on the 6th wave or something like that, trust me, it is cool information, but mostly irrelevant for your climbing. And I say that as someone who's given tips like that from time to time, but it's usually just to sound smart or have something new to talk about. Feel free to ignore me if I ever give you a tip like that. Alright, that's the end of my ranting for this video. Remember, Skillcapped is by far the best place to learn how to climb out of low elo, so use the discount link below to get actual good advice to start climbing today. See you next time.